an elementary physical education teacher in New York City, the Bronx, and New York City DOE schools, South Bronx. So if you're a Yankee fan, go Yankees. And this is my 5th year at my school. Interesting thing about me is I have my phys ed degree, a childhood education, grades 1 to 6, and special education 1 to 6. And actually, I have about 11 years. Actually, no, yeah, 11 years, actually almost 12. This is my 10th year teaching phys ed, and I actually have about 2 years teaching special education.
What are some of your favorite physical lesson plans or activities that you do in the gym? I'm thinking maybe 3 or 4. And then just tell me about why you like those 3 or 4.
I love the bowling game because it's obviously bowling is one of my favorites. And like I said, it just really runs itself. And the students really, I guess they pick up on my energy because that's the one I'm most familiar with. So like I said, one student bowls, one student, and that's really, and it seriously works for the little students too. And I had a scorecard, and the scorecard, since they know, and it's great because they know the scorecard. So literally, if I change the bowling pins for the little ones, K to 2, I should say, from bowling pins, if I did, now I'm doing hockey, if it's in little goals and I just haven't crossed it, it's the same concept. So they just know it. So like I said, it makes life easy. And for the older ones, I have they just write down the numbers. So they're practicing their math skills. And that's just literally something that I do pretty much. So they probably be like, oh, the scorecard. Oh, okay, cool. So they literally know what to do. And another one I love to do is I love to do football. You can get the skills of kicking and football. And same thing. The kids love keeping score. It just is a great way for them to kind of assess where they are. And they can throw the ball. They have a football. I like to do it where they can throw it into the net and it's like 10 points. But if they bounce it off, it's another 5 points. And if they want, or not, or you can have them stand. I had one game where they stood on one side of the gym. One student was the quarterback, and the other kid would run. They could take 5 steps, and they had to throw it to them. And if they caught it, they would become the quarterback, and the other student would run forward, and then they would try to get closer and throw it in. And if they dropped it, it would be like that. So it was, a safer way, but also still a very interesting way of doing it.
Let's pause for a second. So walk me through, because I'm super interested in this particular unit, because I did have a flag football unit when I was in school, but most of the time I don't hear about football units in physical education class. So if you could, would you be able to kind of walk me through that
Sure.
unit or that lesson from start to finish? What are some of the activities you do? What's some of the equipment you use? That kind of thing.
So the QB54 is really a big part of it. And because I played football, I love football, but it's flag football, which is a great alternative. But I mean, it's with double classes, and it's hard to. Football is not always the safest. It's also, like I said, it's a very vigorous. It's a very it doesn't always lend itself for elementary phys ed. So, but you can get softer footballs, soft ones, little ones, bigger ones, of different sizes. It actually comes with regular true, little mini ones. But I like to use the Nerf ones, like blow up ones. There's all kinds of different ones that you can use. So, but basically, when we talk about flag football, we're kind of almost like doing and I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's kind of like I said, I try to do it because I see the students once or twice a week, and I want to kind of maximize the connection to the sport. The first unit was like a throwing game. We used the chairs, and one of my favorite games called exercise dice game, which is ironic because it only used one, where they roll a dice. And the connection to that was because when we do football, we need muscular endurance, muscular strength, flexibility. And for the younger students, I always ask them, and they're always with it, like, we have to eat vegetables, we have to eat this too. And it comes out of nowhere, which is great. So like I said, all these connections. So they're really buying into it. And so the first unit is like throwing. For the little ones, it's tossing, because we're looking at the New York State and shape outcomes and standards. And so it's like a cardio, muscular fitness activity, using the chairs to toss it at like a low level. And I think I got like these putting, they were made for putting, but I cut a hole in them. And I think what I also did was, I put them up for like a basketball, and I had them toss it into there too. So they're tossing low, they're tossing high. They're really getting used to tossing. And that would be the first. So it's like usually a 4-week unit. And if you're familiar with the writing process, like I said, I know that might sound like, wait, what is this phys ed? Why is there a writing process? And I actually kind of adapted that because it makes it easier for me, myself, and the kids to actually understand, like, oh, this is where we are. So, and a lot of it is just like having the students like, okay, cool, this is what we did last time. How are we going to make it more difficult? So it's not just me telling them, this is what you need. They kind of like, oh, and we talk about force and power. We talk about, like I said, different concepts, different exercise movement concepts. So the students know, okay, now I need to make it a little more difficult when I do it. And then the second time and the second and really third time around, we kind of worked on kicking. And I would show them the bottles and they got a big kick. Literally, they got a big kick out of that. No pun intended, actually pun intended. But so it was, all of it was designed so that every student can do it and they could all be successful. But, and the idea is that they could, no matter what, like I said before, but different types of players that they were, whether they wanted to, be, say, I could do this the best, I could get the most points, it was something for everyone, they all enjoy it. And then kind of when we're the culminating activity is we have like our football throwing Super Bowl, where they're working as a team and they have a scorecard. And it's not like a crazy scorecard. It's literally just like, if they think, like I said before, if they throw it in, it's 10 points. If they kick it, it's like 10 points. If it bounces off the wall, there's a 5 extra points. So we're playing football kind of true to form. I mean, it's not the tackling aspect, and it may not be. The great thing about an elementary phys ed is that you can kind of do that, and because it doesn't have to be true to form. But
so it sounds like it's almost like a modified set of, it's almost like modified football in a sense. You're talking about throwing stuff against the wall and throwing through hoops and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's almost like a skills training, it sounds like, for football.
Oh yeah, that's what everything is. It used to be where it was like, here's the sport, this is what we're going to do. But now it's like more like, here's the skills we're going to do. If I want to run, I need to know the skills how to run. If I need to throw a ball, but these skills of throwing also can transfer to other games and sports. Baseball throwing, or even throwing garbage to. So these skills are transferable. They're not just like in isolation. So yeah, it's really about. And what the shift is, like in middle school, they're going to focus more on playing it true to form. And that's why elementary school, I personally prefer elementary school. Like you said, it's modified. We talk about the modifications because the kids are like, what's the difference? Like for bowling, like what? We don't have those machines. Like, how do we do it? Or even when we do the Winter Olympics, we're doing ice skating. How we don't have ice. So it's modified. It's like almost in ways an introduction. So you're teaching the skills. So that even if they don't, if a student says, you know what, I don't want to become a tennis pro, they at least still know the skill of striking. They still can use an object. So maybe they want to play hockey, or maybe they want to do something else. So they at least are familiar with it. And it's in some ways, it's a great approach, because if you think about it, in the classroom, they're doing the same thing, like the same skills. I always use these examples. I'm like, if you want to get better at math, you practice reading. It helps, but is it? Like there's different exercises help getting different strengthened parts of the body, and it's all transferable. That's the right idea. That's the idea.
What are the 3 most important skills that you teach in your football unit?
Throwing or tossing for the younger, for primary K to 2. Throwing, catching, and kicking.
How about you mentioned a tennis unit as well. How about a tennis unit?
Well, tennis, it kind of manifests a different way, because it's really more like striking with a long handle, I believe it's called a long instrument. But that's pretty much the primary skill. But that we just kind of a different, like using different levels of force, like tapping it soft or hard. So there's really, in like bowling, it's really more like one skill per se, but like one physical skill that we're working on. But it kind of, how do we do how do we like different, then it really kind of like what kinds of levels of force, like how do we hit it to a wall versus how do we hit it to a part ourselves?
So we talked a little bit about remote PE at the beginning.
Mhm.
So what I'm super curious to hear from you, Jim, is, say I'm a teacher who is either new to teaching phys ed, or, maybe is coming into a sort of a hybrid role where we have to teach remote PE. What are some tips that you could give me in terms of how to create some of the lesson plans that you've created yourself?
For remote PE, I
Sure.
kind of went on Twitter and I literally kind of absorbed or literally looked into every kind of ed tech where if somebody sits in like seesaw, I would look into it. And I've eventually found my personal favorites, which are in no particular order: Pear Deck, Weaklet, Buncee, Classic, and Flipgrid. And I would be remiss sitting here and telling you that they all have their great functions, and but the great thing about it is you could app smash them. Yes, that is a term. You could combine them all, but I would say like I love Pear Deck. A lot of people in my school call me Mr. Pear Deck because I taught it all. But recently I've actually been using Classic, which is very similar, but it just works. So and I'm fortunate because I found some old iPads, and I'm talking about like generation 1 iPads, and that like they barely run Safari. But I would say just personal advice is just like, don't get discouraged. If you're hybrid, I also faced the challenge because I was not in the gym, like I said, but I was not in the gym, and I really wanted to use everything that and all the technology and all the knowledge I had acquired. But I know one of the focuses for my school was that we want to still make sure students are, focusing on their writing skills. So using traditional pen and paper, which can be but that could also be very time consuming with ink. So I started using Classic because I literally would, just because you don't have to trust an internet. And if you can, I would say literally, if you could visualize it, do it. Like for me, so when I made this hockey scorecard, I'm more than happy to share it. Like, or any of these scorecards, I looked up hockey goal cartoon and I just like made a little one and I just pasted it. I put name, so the kids wrote their name and put some directions, all in Microsoft Word or Google Documents work. Those are my favorites. And I would just put it, I downloaded, I just like made 40 pages. I just copied and pasted the entire thing. I downloaded it as a PDF. Things like Classic are great because you could upload that into it. You could create the assignment. Now what's great about it is if you're able to have iPads, or it's great because you don't have to worry about handing out papers and pencils. This is great. Like I said, if you don't have access to iPads, it's fine, or some kind of tablet, or you could go to a traditional paper and pencil route. And you might be thinking, well, paper and pencil, but honestly, it's once you build it in and once you ingrain it, it makes assessing great. You could always add like an assessment question. Like with my older students, I always like to ask them how they're totaling their scores, and then asking them a question like a performance related question, like, okay, so how did you do today? What went well? What was your glows and grows? So all the ones I named. Flipgrid is great for like videos, especially for like field day. If you're home. My students loved it. I would make it. I just made a video. And one things actually I would say not to sleep on or to really look into are making a YouTube channel, which is great because there's a lot of great content, but it really means it goes a lot further for the students. If you just simply, I know, like I said, I'm self-conscious myself sometimes, but it's just fun because I'm like, you know what, I do it, and my YouTube channel is like, I'm not trying to brag about me with my YouTube channel, but it's really pretty helter skelter. Like I've had videos. I even have my little daughter when she was 1 year old, even dancing with me, just because like I would have the students every week and just fun things like that. It's great too, because a lot of people have been great. And I'm very fortunate that, to be part of this great community where people share things, and it's okay to just kind of take it and remake it your own, which I kind of do, which I feel like imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Wow. Been a long day, but so some of these are great because I know ladies companies talked about like they're getting more usage because like for people like myself, I literally went to them and I said, like Bunsey, and I said, there are a lot of people that are ambassadors. I said, you guys need more phys ed. They were like, help us out. So they're interesting, just like Fit and Fun is helpful because these are companies that I personally stand by because they are very receptive. Wakelet, I did the Wellness Wednesday series, all the video, which is great. Something like that. It's almost like a Padlet if you're familiar with, if you're listening, you're not familiar. it's a great way to put all your things, so it's very easy all in one place. And it's kind of like a Flipgrid feature where you can even upload it. There's Flipgrid technology, which will load it up there. It's almost like a website, but it's like a more interactive, more engaging. So I'm happy to share any of this stuff, any of these resources too. But that's what I say, just try different things. And I know like there's a wealth of things, but like if you do find one that you really like, ask someone, because I'm sure there's like myself, there's other people. But also I would say, because if it seems good, like I said, like a scorecard or concept, like I'm doing the Olympics. I looked up Olympic writing prompts and it came up like I got like 800 from the classroom. And we're all amazing educators. It's look for, if it looks good and you could use it, take it, borrow it. That's what people wanted. That's why people do this, and it's great. And if anything, at the end of the day, they're teachers too. They want to do what's best for their students. They want you to do what's best for your students. So don't be afraid to borrow, and I'm sure I've reached out to so many people and said, hey, especially Fit and Fun, and say, can I use this? Can I try this? What do you think? So many people are receptive. So don't be afraid, like you have to do it all on your own. And there are something, take what you know or what you've done and tried and true. When I like to set up, Pear Deck is especially a good one that I like to use, because you can create the lesson like you normally would, like regular, the teaching point, the objectives, you've warm up, then you have your little mini lesson, you have some slides. What's great about it is that you add interactive parts to it and the students can actually answer it there. All of it comes to you and you can literally see the answers in real time. So
that's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah. And that was one of my favorite ones. Like I've not too humble brag, but that's worked for, like I said, it has to be good, because like I've taught it to all types of all content teachers. So like I'm just saying that if something is that good, if it's used by a lot of people, I gotta feel like it's pretty good.
Where can we find you, Jim? Where can anybody find you on either social media or website? What do you have?
I have recently back on Twitter. I was on a little hiatus, like I said, because I now have an 8-month-old daughter, and getting back into the gym and just trying to be the best person, father, husband, teacher that I can be, son. And so I'm back on Twitter. I want to say username. I'm not really quite sure about that. Kind of dating myself by saying use the word username, but it's a Jim back in the gym. That's my new name. You'll see me. I'm not as active as I used to be because, like I said, I have 2 small children. One is just keeps running back and forth. That's why I keep looking away. But I'm always more than happy to reach out if you have a question. I'll also share, because it's not really, the Wellness Wednesday series was created at the peak or before the pandemic, if I can speak to that a little bit, where when I was my term in the physical activity council, just because I rolled off, my time was up. It was a 3-year term, a volunteer term. So I kind of rebranded it. And it was basically, the series is I would ask colleagues of mine for 30 minutes and they would do different things like yoga, Pilates. My friend did video game music dancing. He's a phenomenal tap and ballet. I've known him since we were 3. And just like HIIT and just different kinds of workouts that could be done for students, for anyone who wants to move. And that's the whole point of that series. So it wasn't just physical activity, which is important, but also just kind of like the modification. So it's more, because for me, with like my special ed background, or just, trying to make it accessible for everyone. So that I would share. Can't really say where to find it. It's on Weekly, but I'm sure
we can find it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll share it. But I mean, like, that's always a good thing. Like I said, and it's a lot of like, I've had a lot of people that you met, like from the community, Victoria Otto, Pam Powers, like just phenomenal.
That was your YouTube channel.
But Hambel at Home on YouTube. 315 subscribers. Believe it or not.
Nice. How about that?